Hi, Tim here from Proclaim AV, and today we're going to talk about the Mackie ProFX 16 version 3. Let's check it out. So today we're going to walk through the board and then see what features it has, poke the buttons, turn the knobs, you know, the regular sort of thing that I like to do here. So let's get to it. Okay, so here we're looking at the top of the mixer where the inputs are at. But before we get started, let's take a look at the back of the mixer. And as you can see, there are not that many things happening back here. You just have XLR and quarter-inch balanced and unbalanced main outputs. It's nice to have that extra set of main outputs on the balanced unbalanced. And then you have the USB connection, of course, the power switch, and the power plug. So that's pretty much all that's happening on the back of this mixer. Keeps it pretty simple. So here at the top here on channels 1 and 2, I wanted to point out that these are set up for a quarter-inch input on the combo jack there. You can put in XLR or you can put in quarter-inch, and then there is a there's a high Z button right here. So if you're using a high impedance instrument, the guitar input or whatever, you can turn that on and off right there. Okay, and then of course an insert, low cut, and we start going into the regular stuff. And that's once we get to channel 3 here, which I'm plugged into currently. It's pretty similar. So there's a balanced and unbalanced line input, and then there's an insert point. We talked about inserts before that let you send put in like effects units or whatever. You can just plug them right into the channel. And then all the way across from channel 3 all the way over to 8 were exactly the same. But let's roll over here to some of the stereo channels. So over on the stereo channels, you'll notice that the insert goes away, but now you have left-right plugs. So it looks exactly the same, but you have to pay attention to what's printed there. There's no insert. You can only put in balanced, unbalanced, left-right stereo inputs, except for 1516. And 1516 is weird because it has the 1/8" stereo line in. So you can use that for a computer, you can use it for a mobile device or whatever. With an aux cable, you're ready to go there. And also this channel can be USB 3.4 return. And so there's a button to turn it on and off right there. And what that lets you do is if you're playing back USB, because this will let you put in up to 4 channels of USB audio at the same time, you can put 3.4 into this 1516 channel, and you can mix it back into either a live performance, or you can use it if you're going to record a couple things and then go play it back in again and record on top of that. You can use it as a way to get your pre-recorded tracks back into the mixer to mix them together with new stuff. Okay, so now we're looking at the top of these different input channels. Over here, there's a low cut filter, which I'm using right now on my, well, it's actually off right now. Let's demonstrate that. So if I bump my mic stand, we get some low frequencies there. Now we put our low cut filter in, and you can hear that there's quite a bit of difference. You don't get that deep low rumble. If you're listening on a smartphone or something, you might not be able to hear the low frequencies. But low cut is handy for that. And so for a lot of situations, you can just engage the low cut, and you know, pretty much for all vocal mics, I'll engage a low cut. Human vocals don't get down that low very often. You'll have some basso profundos or somebody who sings ridiculously low stuff, and then maybe you don't need to do the low cut. But for most situations, low cut can be on. Now, I'm not really pushing this a lot, but let me get over here and talk a little louder in so you can see the level set light come on. And that is just kind of like a level indicator to show you that, you know, your level is sufficient and you have signal on the channel. Now you'll see we have a compressor for all these channels all the way through 8, but it ends here at 910. There's no compressor here. So channels 1 through 8 have a 1 knob compressor, which we can turn on to catch all the really loud stuff and kind of smash it down for us. I do have a video about 1 knob compressors, so you can check that out because that'll help you set the 1 knob up properly. Also, I really recommend looking at the manual of the device to make sure that you're using the 1 knob properly because they're not all the same. Okay, so now we're taking a look at the EQ here, and you'll notice that we have 3 bands of EQ, indicated by the blue knobs. High is at 12. Let's boost that. Ooh, crispy. And cut it. Okay. The mid is sweepable from 100 hertz all the way up to 8 kilohertz. So let's just turn the knob on that so you can listen to what it sounds like as it changes. There we go. We got it kind of midway. You can hear as we've made a little boost on it. You can hear the frequency change as you turn the knob around, and that gives you control over a pretty wide frequency range if you need it. So that is a handy thing to have. A sweepable mid-range EQ is one of my favorite options on small analog consoles because it gives you some of that EQ functionality of a digital. Not nearly as precise, to be fair, but it is much better than just a fixed EQ. Now, that being mentioned, there is one channel that just has fixed EQ for the mid-range, and that is 1516. You'll see that it only has a fixed 2.5 kilohertz mid-range EQ. So, something to think about. It's a little different than the other channels. And then the low, here let's give that a cut. Now that's at 80, so if you need to cut more than just 100 from your low cut filter, this cuts even more. So, and then we can boost it. And it sounds like mud. Lovely. I'll take a minute here to reiterate my 2 rules of EQ, and that is 1, cut before you boost, and 2, less is more. And I think that will serve you well as a philosophy of EQ. Use it sparingly, especially in live situations, and try not to boost things because you're just turning up a frequency volume, and it's a good chance you'll start feedback instead of helping your situation. All right, let's look at our auxiliary mixes. So let's take a look at auxiliary mixes, and we'll notice here that we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is effects, is a dedicated effects one. Now, I will note here that monitor 1 and 2 are always pre-fader according to Mackie's manual, but 3 you can set individually by channel whether that channel is pre or post fader in that mix. Now, let me submit to you that that is fantastic for making a live streaming submix, because that lets you, if you have particular channels that are just like not loud enough on post fader, then you can just switch them over to pre fader. So if you're doing live streaming and you're making a live streaming auxiliary mix, I think monitor 3 is the ticket here. I want to mention here that we have at auxiliary mixes, we have 4. This is dedicated for effects, but you can bypass it, and we'll show you there in a minute. And down here at the bottom is pan, so we can pan left and pan right. Very nice. So I'll go down a little more here, and we'll look at the bottom. We do have the mute buttons, which are lighted, so you can see when the light's on, we're muted, and when the light's off, we're unmuted. They're also up when they're unmuted. So just another thing, I wish manufacturers would kind of get together on this, if down means on and up means off, but everybody does their own thing when it comes to that, so it just is what it is. And then finally, faders for the main mix are right here, and then assignment buttons for the main mix are right here as well. So let's just pop up here and look at that. Left, right, of course, if I take this out of left, right, then up here and I'll be off and gone from the main mix, so we got to be down to be in the main mix on the left, right. There's a solo, if you want to send it off to listen to just that in your headphones. There's a is a PFL solo, and they have apparently combined that. I know I've made distinctions about PFL and solo before, but it doesn't appear that that is available here. It's just sort of a combo button. And then there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, where you can assign in banks of 2 into your subgroups, 1, 2, or 3, 4. And if you want to learn more about subgroup routing, then go back and watch our video on Mixer Basics, and I talk about subgroup routing and demonstrate subgroup routing. So, and this will work in a similar way to that. Okay, so we'll take a minute here and look at the output section of the mixer. So at the top, you can see that we have auxiliary outs here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This one you'll notice is effects. And so if you want to use that effects auxiliary mix as a separate monitor mix, then just patch right into it, and ta-da, you'll have a 4th monitor mix. Also up here are your subgroup outputs. Notice that these are all balanced and unbalanced. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they are available for balanced or unbalanced connections. And then there's a control room output, and which is really handy if you're using this in a small studio and you want to have some local studio monitors. The control room output is really nice. I will mention up here is the fan and power button, and that turns it on globally for the mixer. So there's no separate fan and power per channel. It's either all on or all off with this one. You can probably hear a little pop there as we power it on and off. It won't hurt dynamic microphones. I have people ask me that question quite a bit, and it will not hurt a dynamic mic. Let's move down here and look at some more features. So listed there are all our effects presets. So the onboard effects for this mixer are not particularly complex. You can't change any parameters like you can do in the Behringer that we looked at. They just are what they are. So let's pop some effects in, and I think we're on 7 right now. Okay. To change effects, go to your rotary encoder here. Just turn the knob. Till you find the effect that you want. Let's try 14. It'll flash until you select it by pressing down on the knob. There we go. Echo, echo. Very nice. I'll go back up to 7. There we go. So that's how you set up effects there. Now there's an effects mute button. Let's move down so we can see that. Right below there. So let's put the effects back in, and if I'm doing something, let's say I was singing and I wanted the reverb, but now I want to talk to whoever's there, but I don't need the reverb for my talking. I can hit the effects mute button, and that will mute the effects. If I'm introducing a group or something, and then I'm going to go back into the music and take the effects back, put the effects back on again, then I can just unmute them there. There's also a foot switch all the way at the top that can be used if you plug in a foot switch to control the effects as well. Now I wanted to mention something here. I'm going to turn these off. And that is the Rude Solo light. Now this is an old Mackie feature, and they have done this for a lot of years, but if you have solo pressed anywhere on the mixer, then the Rude Solo light will blink. And that's kind of handy because it might let you know, hey, you got a channel soloed somewhere and you need to look around and find it. So that's just something that Mackie has been doing for ages and ages. And so I wanted you to know what it is. Now, in the effects section here, there's a couple things to look at. One is that now we can use these knobs to add effects to our monitor mixes. So if you want effects in your monitor mix, if you want in 1, 2, or 3, then you can just turn up the knob for that monitor mix, and that will send that amount of effects off to that monitor mix. So that's nice. You don't have to do any routing or patching or any weirdness. It's just available for monitor mixes. Then we have the aux masters right here, and those are the volume controls for each aux output, including effects. If that's down, then you're not going to get any effects at all. So let's try that. Okay, turn the effects. Oh, now I have nothing. So yeah, that's the master for that. For whatever channel you've put into the effects bus, that's the master volume for it. So here we are at the bottom. You can see that we have a separate headphone volume control. We have a control room volume control for those outputs that we looked at earlier at the top there for monitors. And then we have this blend button here. And this is interesting because what it lets us do is blend the input and USB 1.2 return. Hi, Future Tim here, and I am taking a second to more fully explain the blend knob. I think there was some confusion in the way I explained it originally. This blend knob can only be used when you press the two phones and control room button down, and then you can use it for a monitoring blend. It doesn't do anything to the main outs or the live sound part of the board. It just is used for monitoring. So with the adjacent switch engaged, this knob sends a blend between all inputs and the USB 1.2 return, and it does not include the 1/8 inch input, to the phones and control room outputs. And as an added bonus, it's all zero latency. So that is great if you're using this board as a recording interface and you want to listen to USB 1.2 return, etc. For overdubs, as it notes here, then that's a great feature. For some of you who are using this for a live event and not for recording, then this is a feature you don't have to worry about because you're probably not going to use it. Anyway, I hope that sufficiently explains the blend knob. Now over here is the break button. So since I hit that, it mutes all the channels. And that's a good feature if you're going to walk away from the board for a minute, but you don't want to shut everything off. You can just hit break and it'll mute everything. And then that way it doesn't start a feedback loop while you're gone. And then here at the bottom, of course, are all the outputs. So you have your subgroup outputs. You have subgroup assignments. So you can assign your subgroup into left, right. You've got your main volume control for your mains. Here is your effects volume control. So if we turn that up, we'll get effects. And then it also lets you assign the effects into subgroup 1, 2, and 3, 4. So that button is available if you want effects to get to your subgroup. So on this mixer, you can put effects into all 3 monitor mixes and the subgroups and the main. So it's pretty flexible with that. So that kind of wraps everything up. And overall, I really do like this mixing console. I like that it's very straightforward. I really like this auxiliary bus where we can pick pre or post for every channel. That's great for small churches who are doing live streams. I like that it has sweepable mids, one knob compressors, a lot of really good features on this board. It's very straightforward. And I feel like it has a lot of features that you probably are going to use versus features that you may not use. So I hope you enjoyed that walkthrough of the Mackie ProFX16v3. Maybe it's the right board for your application. Thanks for watching.